He was just finishing his shift when the plane hit the ground, 2 miles from his last delivery. Most people would have turned up the radio and driven home, but underneath that Pizza Palace shirt was a tattoo that read, Airborne. And when you've spent 15 years jumping into danger, you don't suddenly learn to run away from it. Welcome to One Human, One Story. Before we begin this powerful tale of courage and instinct, have you ever suspected that your pizza delivery person is a secret hero? Write your comments below and tell us about the everyday heroes you've met. If you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. These are the moments that remind us heroes walk among us every single day. Danny Martinez had been delivering pizzas for Pizza Palace for exactly 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Not that he was counting. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Rent on his 1-bedroom apartment, gas for his 2008 Honda Civic, food that wasn't leftover pizza. At 42, he wasn't exactly living the American dream, but he wasn't complaining either. Some men his age were climbing corporate ladders. Others were coaching Little League or planning family vacations. Danny just drove circles around suburban Chicago, delivering hot food to people who barely looked at him. Thursday night, October 15th, rain pelting his windshield like angry fingers tapping glass. The weather had been brutal all week. Thunderstorms rolling through every evening. Most delivery drivers hated nights like this. Slippery roads, impatient customers, tips that barely covered gas. But Danny didn't mind. Weather never bothered him. Not after what he'd been through. Not after jumping out of planes in Afghanistan, where the only forecast that mattered was enemy fire. His last delivery of the night was to 4847 Maple Street. Large pepperoni pizza, Diet Coke. Total came to $23.47. The customer, a middle-aged woman in a bathrobe, answered the door with wet hair and an apologetic smile. "Sorry about the weather," she said, handing him $30. "Keep the change." Danny nodded politely, thanked her, walked back to his car with $6.53 more than he'd expected. Small victory. He was pulling away from Maple Street when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong, low and mechanical, cutting through the storm like a chainsaw through silence. Danny had heard enough aircraft engines to know when something was wrong. This one was sputtering, struggling, fighting gravity, and losing. He pulled over, rolled down his window, listened. The sound was getting closer and lower. Most people would have assumed it was thunder, maybe a truck with a bad muffler, but Danny's ears were trained differently. 15 years in the 82nd Airborne Division teaches you to identify aircraft by sound alone. This was a small plane, single engine, probably a Cessna, and it was in serious trouble. The explosion lit up the sky 2 miles northwest of his position, orange flames cutting through black clouds like a sunrise in reverse. Danny felt his chest tighten. His hands gripped the steering wheel harder. For 3 years, he'd been just a pizza delivery driver. For 3 years, he'd lived quietly, peacefully, but some reflexes never fade. Some training never leaves your blood. He turned his Honda toward the flame. The crash site was in Henderson's cornfield. Danny had driven past it 1,000 times. Flat farmland that stretched for miles. Good visibility during the day, pitch black at night. He parked on the shoulder of County Road 47, grabbed his flashlight from the glove compartment, the same tactical flashlight he'd carried in Afghanistan. Some habits die hard. The plane had carved a path through the corn like a scythe. Broken stalks and scattered metal marked the trail of destruction. Danny followed it, his feet finding purchase on uneven ground, his eyes scanning for survivors. The aircraft was a Cessna 172, 4 seats, probably a training flight or weekend trip gone wrong. The cockpit was crushed, the tail section snapped clean off, fuel was leaking, the smell of aviation gas mixed with burning corn. Danny reached the main wreckage and heard it, a voice, weak but alive. "Help, please. Someone help us." The sound was coming from inside the twisted cabin. Danny moved closer, peered through the shattered windscreen. 2 people, a man and a woman, both conscious but trapped. The man's leg was pinned under bent metal. The woman had blood running down her face. They looked young, college-age, maybe newlyweds on a weekend getaway. "Are you okay?" Danny called out. "Can you move?" The man tried to shift his position and winced. "I think my leg is broken," he said. "Sarah's hurt too. We can't get out. The doors are jammed." Danny circled the aircraft, checking every angle, looking for a way in. The fuel leak was getting worse. If the engine was still hot, if there was any electrical spark, the whole thing could go up in flames. He found a gap near the rear passenger door. The frame was bent, but not completely sealed. Danny wedged his fingers into the opening, started pulling. The metal was sharp, cut through his Pizza Palace uniform, drew blood from his palms. But pain was temporary. Death was permanent. He'd learned that lesson a long time ago. The door gave way with a screech of tortured metal. Danny squeezed inside. The cabin was cramped, dark, filled with smoke and the smell of fear. The woman, Sarah, was closest to him, conscious but dazed, probably a concussion. Danny checked her vitals. Pulse was strong, breathing was steady, no obvious spinal injuries. She could be moved. "What's your name?" she asked. "Danny, I'm going to get you out of here, both of you." The man was in worse shape. His left leg was pinned under a section of the instrument panel. The bone was definitely broken, maybe multiple fractures. Moving him would be risky, but leaving him would be fatal. Danny had done this before. Not exactly this, but close enough. He'd pulled wounded soldiers from burning vehicles in Kandahar, carried unconscious Marines through Taliban ambushes. The principles were the same. Assess, prioritize, act. Don't think about the risks. Think about the mission. He got Sarah out first, carried her 20 yards from the wreckage, far enough to be safe from explosion, close enough that he could still reach the plane quickly. She was shivering, going into shock. Danny took off his Pizza Palace jacket, wrapped it around her shoulders. "You're gonna be okay," he said. "I'm going back for your friend." The fuel leak was worse now. Danny could see it pooling under the engine, spreading like liquid death. He had maybe 5 minutes before the whole thing became a bomb, maybe less. He climbed back into the cabin. The man's name was Jason. He was a student pilot. This was only his 3rd solo flight. He'd been trying to land at a small airstrip when the storm hit, lost visibility, lost control, lost everything except his life. "This is going to hurt," Danny said, "but I need to move you." Jason nodded, his face pale but determined. "Do what you have to do." Danny examined the instrument panel. Heavy, but not impossible to lift. He braced his feet against the cabin floor, put his hands under the twisted metal, and lifted. The weight was incredible, like bench pressing a refrigerator. Danny's back screamed. His shoulders burned. Sweat mixed with rain on his forehead, but the panel moved just enough. Jason pulled his leg free, screamed as the broken bone shifted, but he was free. Danny half-carried, half-dragged Jason from the wreckage, his military training kicking in like muscle memory. Support the injured. Move with purpose. Don't stop until you reach safety. They made it 15 yards before the Cessna exploded. The fireball lit up the cornfield like a miniature sun. Heat washed over them in waves. Danny threw himself over Jason, shielding him from flying debris. Chunks of metal and burning fuel rained down around them, but they were alive, all 3 of them, breathing, bleeding, but breathing. The first responders arrived 12 minutes later. Fire trucks, ambulances, state police. By then, Danny had used his belt as a tourniquet for Jason's leg, his shirt as a bandage for Sarah's head wound. Basic field medicine he'd learned in Fort Bragg and perfected in Afghanistan. The paramedics were impressed. "You did good," one of them said. "Probably saved their lives." Danny didn't stick around for interviews, didn't wait for reporters. He gave a statement to the police, made sure Jason and Sarah were stable. Then he walked back to his Honda, still running, still warm. The pizza delivery bag still in the back seat. He drove home in silence, showered, went to bed, set his alarm for the next shift. The story hit the local news 2 days later. Pizza delivery driver saves crash victims. Hero in uniform shirt. They interviewed Jason from his hospital bed. His leg was in traction, but he was going to walk again. Sarah had been released with a mild concussion. Both of them wanted to thank the man who saved their lives. But Danny Martinez had already disappeared back into his quiet life. The Pizza Palace manager offered him a promotion. Assistant manager, better hours, health insurance. Danny politely declined. He liked driving, liked the solitude, liked being invisible. The owner of the pizza shop wanted to use his story in advertising. "Local hero works here." Danny said no. No interviews, no photo ops, no publicity, but word spread anyway, the way it always does in small communities. The pizza guy who ran into a burning plane, the delivery driver who knew emergency medicine. People started asking questions, started noticing things, like the way Danny carried himself, the way he scanned rooms when he entered, the way he never seemed surprised by anything. One customer, a retired Marine named Bob Henderson, recognized something familiar. The bearing, the alertness, the quiet confidence. Bob had served in Vietnam. He knew a warrior when he saw one. After Danny delivered his usual Friday night order, Bob asked the question directly. What branch? Danny didn't pretend not to understand. Army, 82nd Airborne. Bob nodded. How long? 15 years. 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq. Bob never asked about the details. Didn't need to. Some stories are written in scars, others in the way a man moves through the world. Danny had both. The visible marks on his hands from pulling metal apart. The invisible marks that made him run toward danger instead of away from it. The Pizza Palace started getting more customers. People who came not just for the food, but to meet the hero who delivered it. Danny hated the attention, but he understood it. In a world full of celebrities and manufactured fame, people hungry for something real. Someone who acted without thinking about cameras or social media. Someone who risked everything for strangers and asked for nothing in return. 3 months after the plane crash, Danny got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a framed photo of Sarah and Jason on their wedding day. They'd been engaged when the plane went down. The crash had made them realize how precious time was, how quickly everything could change. On the back of the photo was a simple message. Thank you for giving us our future. Danny put the photo on his kitchen table next to his coffee maker, where he could see it every morning. Not because he needed recognition, not because he wanted to relive that night, but because it reminded him of something important, something he'd learned in the army and forgotten in civilian life. Everyone has a mission. Some people's mission is to build things, others to teach or heal or create. Danny's mission was simpler: to be ready, to be present, to be there when someone needed him most. The customers at Pizza Palace started calling him different names: hero, lifesaver, guardian angel. Danny preferred the old name, the one that required no explanation, the one that came with no expectations. Pizza guy. It was honest, it was real, it was enough. On quiet Thursday nights when the rain is falling and the roads are empty, Danny still drives the same routes, still delivers hot food to grateful customers, still lives in the same 1-bedroom apartment, still drives the same beat-up Honda. But something changed that night in Henderson's cornfield. Not Danny. He'd always been the same man. What changed was everyone else's ability to see him, because heroes don't retire. They just change uniforms. They trade military fatigues for pizza delivery shirts, combat boots for worn sneakers. But underneath the costume, the heart remains the same, ready to serve, ready to sacrifice, ready to run toward the sound of trouble when everyone else is running away. Danny Martinez delivers pizza for a living, but that's not who he is. He's a paratrooper who never really left the service, a guardian who happens to carry marinara sauce instead of ammunition, a reminder that in a world full of noise and chaos, the quiet ones are often the most dangerous, not to innocents, but to anyone who threatens them. The Pizza Palace closes at midnight. Danny's shift ends at 11:30. He counts his tips, cleans out his delivery bag, checks his flashlight batteries. Some habits never die, some training never fades, and some heroes never stop being heroes. They just learn to hide in plain sight, waiting for the moment when the world needs them again. And on nights when the thunder rolls and the planes struggle against the storm, Danny Martinez is ready. Not because he wants to be a hero, but because 20 years ago he took an oath to defend the innocent, to protect the weak, to serve something greater than himself. Pizza delivery was just a job. Being a paratrooper was a calling, and some callings echo forever. So the next time you order pizza and a quiet man in a worn uniform shows up at your door, look a little closer. Thank him for the food. Tip him well. But remember that underneath that delivery shirt might be the heart of a warrior, the hands of a healer, the soul of someone who once jumped out of planes for strangers and would do it again tomorrow if you needed him to. Because in America, heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear name tags. Sometimes they drive beat-up cars and smell like pepperoni. Sometimes they're invisible until the moment when visibility matters most. Sometimes they're exactly where you need them to be, right when you need them most, delivering more than pizza, delivering hope,